Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. As Safwan Shah of PayActiv. Safwan, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Gresh. I'm excited to be here.
Super excited to have you on as well. And what I wanted to do was just read a little bit more about Safwan so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. An engineer by training, an entrepreneur by accident, Safwan is the founder and CEO of PayActiv. After selling a previous company and committing to his golf game, Safwan pulled himself out of retirement to launch PayActiv and level the playing field for the financially vulnerable. Safwan's work connects the dots between math, economics, history, and music. His first book, It's About Time: How Businesses Can Save the World One Worker at a Time, turns conventional wisdom on its head and calls for businesses to embrace the mantle of saving the world. Safwan, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yes, very ready.
Awesome, let's do it. So to kick everything off, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your background and your CEO story and what led you to start your businesses.
Yes, so I'm by training, as the bio said, I'm by training an engineer and ended up in Silicon Valley after my PhD. And one thing led to another. I just, frankly, I couldn't get a job. Or a job that I liked, to be more accurate.
Right.
So I ended up, like most people in the valley, in Silicon Valley, Northern California, people become entrepreneurs. And I started one company, didn't get anywhere, started another, and so on and so forth until, I had a very successful payments company. And after finishing that, I thought I'd never work again. And I actually did that. I was retired for 2.5 years and discovered the mysteries of golf. I literally played 300 days a year for a couple of years and did the usual thing, trying to figure out. It's almost like, you lose your bearings when most of the things you thought you're going to do, like education and a job, a better job, a good job. You've done all that, made a company, and your worries are different. And that's what led to PayActiv. So the foundation of PayActiv is introspection and realizing the state of the human condition, and trying to answer the question that why is it that in the richest country of the world, we have a huge number of people living paycheck to paycheck. So PayActiv was created, operated, grown to solve that problem.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that. And it's, like you mentioned, it's funny how, the world goes and how sometimes we have it planned out. We're going to do A, B, C, D, E, and then sometimes the world takes you, or the universe sometimes takes you in a different way. And I love too that, and I don't know if you find that, especially I hear in Silicon Valley, I'm on the other side of the states, but I find that the engineering skill, the ability to be able to problem solve, is kind of integral to being an entrepreneur and business owner. So even though that you transitioned from being an engineer to that, it kind of seemed like it went seamlessly for you, maybe.
Nothing goes seamlessly. Sometimes, if you see a destination, like, imagine that you're looking at a mountain in the distance, but you don't notice the ravine that is in the way when you get to the mountain. You don't notice the water. You don't notice all the other trouble that is in the middle. So, but you're so fascinated, you're so focused on that. So, it's never what you think it is. But if your purpose and your focus is laser focused, then you find a way to navigate all the stuff that is thrown your way.
Absolutely. And that definitely makes sense. If your why and your purpose is that strong, then you find a way to fix those problems and navigate all through that. So I know you've been able to do that with PayActiv, and I know you have a very strong mission for there. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about that, what you're doing, and how you're serving the clients that you're working with.
Yes, so PayActiv has a very well-defined purpose, and that is to alleviate financial stress for, the way we word it, alleviate financial stress for hardworking Americans with financial security, dignity, and no additional debt. So the underlying premise is that 2/3 of America is living paycheck to paycheck. Many of them are hourly workers, about 78 million. And they're borrowing between that paycheck period, the 2-week period or the 1-week period, they're borrowing money from payday lenders and all kinds of other alternative financial services. And my whole thesis or underlying premise of PayActiv is that why are they borrowing it when they already have some money earned every day? So if you're on the 7th day of a 14-day pay cycle, you have 7 days of income that you've already earned. It's just not accessible to you. Mm-hmm. In a manner of speaking, it has been loaned to the employer. The employer owes you that money. And in anticipation, you're getting hit by an overdraft or taking a payday loan, which costs you $35 each time. Mm-hmm. So my whole underlying thesis was that money should move faster between the worker and their employers, especially when they need it. There should be no embarrassment to ask that Mr. Miss Employer, I've earned $300. Can I get $100 out of it? Mm-hmm. Because it's their money that is being held.
Right.
So that was the underlying premise of PayActiv, and we started it. And of course, for the first few years, everybody thought that it would never work. And I made a conscious decision to go to businesses. So it's a B2B thing. And I said to businesses, hey, your employees need it. And I can provide you the technology to accomplish it. And so my company funds that money. And then the employer reimburses us on payday. So we assume the biweekly cycle and the lower income worker, employee, paycheck to paycheck person can get the $100, $200 when they need it, without having to, to do these little loans and so on and so forth. So that's the business. That's PayActiv. It activates your pay.
Nice. I love that. I love how that definitely, solves a problem. Because like you mentioned, if the money's already kind of allocated or earmarked, maybe that might be a better word, within the company and organization, you're doing the work and you already know you're going to do the work to get there, then being able to get that if you need it at a certain point is a lot better than going to potential alternative funding.
So Gresham, this is not even earmarked. This is already earned.
Oh, okay. Okay. You've already worked the 7 hours. Got you. Okay.
You're never giving money that is from the future. In fact, we are correcting. It's already there in a timesheet that Safwan has worked 37 hours this week. And if he's making $20 an hour, he's made whatever, $700. That money is owed to Safwan by the employer. If he quits that moment, he'll get that money. Right. So all I'm saying is, if they need it, let them access it. It's theirs anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you've already, it's kind of putting I don't want to say the monkey wrench, but in the whole 2-week cycle, because like you said, You've already worked this 7 hours or 7 days of a week. Then if you need it, then you can get it and have access to it.
Yeah, I usually give this 30-second example that we pay our landlords in advance. Mm-hmm. We pay our vendors upon delivery, or we have terms that, I'll give you 30 days later and 2% more. And our customers pay us the moment they get the service. Like, you can't walk into a Starbucks, get a cup of coffee and not pay them and say to them, hey, I'll send you the money in 2 weeks. It doesn't work that way. But the person who's serving you behind the counter will wait 2 weeks to get paid. And it hurts them sometimes. Mm-hmm. So it's a strange system, right?
Yeah.
The one who needs it the most has to wait the longest.
Absolutely. Yeah. I never even thought about it like that. So I appreciate you for not just, thinking of that and seeing that kind of problem, but actually creating something for that in true entrepreneurial form. And I wanted to ask you now for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you, or it might be for your organization. You might have already touched on this, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
So number one is the power of the idea. The fact that everybody thought that the employer was doing a favor to the employee, which they do in some sense because they gave them a job. But the fact that employees are actually loaning money to the employer for 2 weeks, nobody had thought of that before. Mm-hmm. Because it's a legacy of kingdoms and generals, and you got paid when the war was won, or you paid your subjects when loyalty was needed by royalty. So the secret sauce of doing this was to solve 3 different problems, which nobody had thought of. One was how to figure out a way to work with businesses where they have, time and attendance systems, clock in, clock out, all that stuff where time is sitting, how many hours so and so has worked. So finding a way to link to so many different types of systems and do it seamlessly. Also talk to every payroll system so that when the paycheck goes to the employee, it is reflected that, hey, this is your paycheck of $1,000. You've already taken 220, so that everything is compliant in the regulatory world. To build all this technology together and to move money to employees in such a way that if on a Thursday night at 9 p.m., the person has done the hours, needs $100, how do you move that money to the person instantaneously? Mm-hmm. So it was pretty much like building a complete financial infrastructure. And the secret sauce was technology, but also how we use our technology and how we use the user experience with the employee that uses us and how we connect with the businesses. So all these things came together. And to me, all of them together is the secret sauce. It was not one wheel that changed the world. It was when people took 4 wheels and put them together and created a cart. So this is what we believe we have accomplished.
That makes perfect sense. And yes, I definitely like that. There's this book called Opposable Mind where it says a lot of the great ideas come from not just one thing, but it's the ability to bring together 2 things and to solve multiple problems at the same time. So it definitely, sounds like you guys are doing that, which I definitely appreciate. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit. And I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And this might be an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
So to me, a CEO, there is no single hack. For me, every day is when I start a day. I start very early, like it's early in the morning, and I'm talking to you. I'm on the West Coast. I start very early in the morning and spend at least 2 hours, if not 2 to 3 hours, just working, like deep immersive work. And every evening, I switch off completely and I only think. So mornings are to do and to do things, and evenings are to think through things. So it's like for me, because I'm in a purpose-driven business, so I don't see my personal and professional in conflict ever. I do what I love.
Right.
So that is my only hack, to spend mornings focused and immersed in doing things, starting things. So that is what I would consider my only hack. It's rather boring, but that's my hack.
Hey, as long as it works, that's what I always say. So those are great hacks. And I think too, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you're starting early before the world and all the fires and all those things can take a hold, you're actually, creating a lot of impact because you've done so much work before kind of like the world wakes up, so to speak.
That is true. And it's also driven by, one quote that I live by. Mm-hmm. It's by Harold Stevenson. I think it's out of Harvard. He was a professor, which is a definition of entrepreneurship. And he kind of says that entrepreneurship is the pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources currently controlled. So every day when I'm thinking in the evenings, I ask myself, did I do something entrepreneurial today? It's like almost entrepreneurship or being entrepreneurial becomes your DNA, becomes like religion. Right. So it's okay to ask at the end of every day, did I live to my mission? I'm an entrepreneur. And this whole notion of pursuit of opportunity without regard to resources controlled is very powerful for me. It is the birth of creativity, because you don't control some resources, right, but you have to find a way to make it happen. Like, you're a businessman and you have to find creative ways to make something happen.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. And it's right in line with what you were talking about before, when you have a vision and then you don't see all the different ravines and things that are in the way, but you have to find a way to kind of get through them. So I think that's a great kind of perspective as well. And now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget. And this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. Or if you could hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I think the first thing I would, my nugget is that have no fear.
Mm.
Fear only comes when you have doubts about what you're doing. And if you have doubts, then you're not yet committed enough.
Mm.
So you have to believe that you're going to win. And your strategy is very easy then. So I would say that my way of thinking about it is have no fear. Always plan for winning. And that is the only way an entrepreneur can succeed. Yes, a very large established company has to think of other things. But an entrepreneur has to never, you're not playing for losing the match. There is no strategy for that. There is no defense here. It's always offense. And keep building the defenses around you, but in an offensive strategy. So I would say fearlessness is what I see as don't be afraid. And if I had to say something to my younger self, at least 2 or 3 things I would say, but the most important one is that there will come a day when you would have achieved all those things that you think today, as to my younger self. Mm-hmm. That autocomplete button that comes in when parents tell you you've got to do this, and then your friends tell you, oh, you got to go to this, get this new job, all that will go away one day. You would have achieved whatever you can imagine today. So think of those things that you just think big, think much bigger. So that's what I would tell my younger self, because whatever I wanted to achieve, I achieved a few years ago. And PayActiv was after that. So that I call that lose your autocomplete.
Yes, I like that. Definitely lose your autocomplete and definitely always think big and think bigger than even what you think that you can think, if that makes sense. So I truly appreciate that. And I know you touched on this a little bit as well, too. I wanted to ask you what being a CEO means to you. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show, entrepreneurs and business owners. But what does being a CEO mean to you?
For me, it is working for others. I see, I'm a big proponent and believer in servant leadership. I will never say that I have employees. I'll also always say they are my colleagues. And so never seeing anyone as an employee, but always seeing them as co-workers, partners, and team members. So being a CEO means to me that I've just got a different responsibility. I have to absorb more pain than others. And I have to lead by example and lead from the front, which is the fearlessness.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you want to see something or some culture within your company or organizations, it's important for you to kind of lead from the front, as you said, and then understand that, you are working with others and then you are that leader. So I appreciate that definition. And what I wanted to do was pass you the mic, so to speak, Safwan, and see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best they can get a hold of you, get a copy of your book, and hear about all the awesome things that you're doing.
So, I rarely have good ideas to give advice with, but I believe in the power of entrepreneurship. And one thing that I would say I want everyone to kind of hear is that don't do 2 things at the same time. Either commit. So those people, because entrepreneurship is not easy. As I said, you're trying to, handle resources that you don't necessarily control. The most important thing, in my opinion, is do one thing and commit to it completely. And you would be surprised that I think 50% of entrepreneurs who give up are trying to juggle 2 things at the same time. They have self-doubt and self-belief, and it dilutes itself if you do it that way. So that's the one big advice or lesson learned in life.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, that tension cannot, coexist. They both can't coexist. It has to be kind of one or the other. So you kind of have to make that decision and choose what's going to be for you. And people that want to follow up with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I rarely tweet, but I'm Safwan Shah, one word, on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, of course. And my book is on Amazon. It's called It's About Time. So if you search for my name, Safwan Shah, on Amazon, you'll find the book. It'd be great if review it, read it. It's kind of an intellectual autobiography of my school of hard knocks and observations and my view of the world. Other than that, I'm Safwan at PayActiv.com. Send me an email. I love to talk to entrepreneurs, love to hear their ideas, and to the best of my ability to help and assist as much as I can.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate your time, appreciate all this, these nuggets and knowledge that you provided. What we'll do is we'll have those links in the show notes as well. And I appreciate you again. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Gresham. Have a great day.